Good to be here. Good to see some familiar faces. First of all, I just want to start by saying anytime you're asked to return to a place that you helped build, you had a hand in building.
What if the WNBA's biggest bombshell isn't exploding under the arena lights, but inside a closed-door meeting that could rip a franchise in half? A rumor is ripping through the league that the Indiana Fever's president just confirmed a jaw-dropping resignation, and it's all being pinned on the chaos surrounding Caitlin Clark. But the coach caught in the middle of this storm isn't who you think. And the truth behind it is far more dangerous than anyone dares to admit. The internet has erupted with a wild claim. Stephanie White, a name etched into Indiana basketball history, has supposedly stepped down, and the fallout is being tied directly to the Fever's new superstar, Caitlin Clark. This rumor didn't rise quietly. It spread like a wildfire across social media, fan pages, and gossip sites, every repost making it feel more real. The story claims Fever President Allison Barber accidentally let it slip behind the scenes, a leak that instantly fueled the belief that the pressure created by Clark's arrival has forced a massive shakeup at the top. Fans are spiraling into madness, flooding the internet with posts and videos, convinced the most hyped rookie in sports has already claimed her first coaching victim. It sounds like the kind of headline drama that writes itself, a respected coach being shoved out by a rookie phenomenon whose fame has become too big for the franchise to control. The whispers paint a picture of total collapse, a front office panicking, a team unraveling, and a resignation serving as the first domino in a disaster waiting to explode. The narrative feels vivid and brutal, a franchise so consumed by the Caitlin Clark circus that it's turning on itself, sacrificing leadership just to survive the spotlight. The message is chilling. Caitlin Clark's presence isn't just powerful, it's destructive. But as the smoke from this viral firestorm starts to fade, one glaring inconsistency rises to the surface, and it threatens to flip the entire story upside down, pointing not to a simple resignation, but to something deeper, darker, and far more calculated. Because that single detail reveals everyone has been staring in the wrong direction, blaming the wrong coach, while the real crisis quietly builds toward eruption in Indiana. The first crack in this sensational rumor, the one that shatters the entire narrative, comes down to one simple fact. Stephanie White is not the current head coach of the Indiana Fever. She hasn't been for 8 years. The woman actually pacing the sidelines, carrying the impossible burden of Caitlin Clark's rookie season and the media chaos that follows her everywhere, is Christy Sides, and that changes everything. Because now the story stops being a headline and becomes a mystery. How does a rumor this easily disproven spread so fast? Why is Stephanie White's name, a figure from the past, being dragged into a storm that should have nothing to do with her? That's where it starts to feel less like a mistake and more like something intentional. This isn't random misinformation. It feels like misdirection, like someone planted a distraction, a carefully designed smokescreen meant to keep the public focused on a wrong target, while something far uglier brews behind the curtain. That be why pulling attention toward a ghost from the past, the people fueling this rumor, are keeping the spotlight away from the real nightmare happening right now, the impossible pressure sitting on the shoulders of Christy Sides. Because the Real story was never about a coach who left years ago. It's about the current coach trapped in an unwinnable situation, with the entire league watching her every move. The Stephanie White angle works perfectly as cover because behind it, the foundation of Indiana Fever is starting to crack under a weight they were never built to carry. But to understand why this distraction hits so hard and why it was used in the first place, you have to go back to the moment Stephanie White truly walked away from Indiana, and see how the echoes of her past success are now being weaponized to make the present situation even more volatile. Stephanie White's departure isn't a mystery at all. It's public record, but it's history that's been buried beneath the current frenzy. White, an Indiana native and a beloved name in the state's basketball legacy, coached the Fever for 2 intense seasons in 2015 and 2016. She delivered success, even guiding the team on a thrilling run to the WNBA Finals in 2015, where they came heartbreakingly close before falling to the Minnesota Lynx. After the 2016 season ended, she announced she was stepping away. And it wasn't some messy exit fueled by locker room chaos or a front office power struggle. It was calculated, strategic, a bold career leap. Stephanie White didn't get pushed out of the WNBA. She chose her next move, taking the head coaching job at Vanderbilt, one of the most respected programs in the brutal, high-pressure world of the SEC. Her departure was clean, professional, and had absolutely nothing to do with Caitlin Clark, who at the time was still a 17-year-old prodigy in high school, nowhere near the national spotlight she commands today. And here's the twist that makes the rumor even more ridiculous. Stephanie White is now the head coach of the Connecticut Sun, one of the WNBA's elite teams and a direct, relentless rival to Indiana. Her squad is built on discipline, defense, and chemistry, the exact traits the Fever are constantly accused of lacking. So the idea that she'd suddenly be resigning from Indiana now isn't just wrong, it's absurd. But the fact her name is even being dragged into this firestorm reveals something far more telling. It shows the pressure in Indiana has reached such a desperate, critical level that people are searching for any storyline, any crack, any explanation for why this Fever rebuild keeps looking like it's collapsing in real time. The ghost of a former successful coach is being summoned like a warning, a reminder of stability, a silent comparison meant to haunt the franchise and expose what fans believe is failing leadership today. But that's not where the real drama lives. The real drama isn't buried in the past, it's exploding in the present, right on Christy Sides' bench, inside her locker room, and in every tense press conference where she's forced to answer for the chaos. Because the true target of this entire storm has always been the current head coach, Christy Sides, a woman living through what might be the most brutal coaching situation in the league. She was hired in 2022 with a mission that was simple on paper but brutal in reality: rebuild a broken franchise that had been stuck at the bottom for years. It was supposed to be a slow grind, a quiet process, something done away from the glare of national obsession. Then, the Fever won the lottery. And everything changed. Because landing the #1 pick in a year featuring a once-in-a-generation, culture-shifting superstar didn't just upgrade the roster, it detonated the entire timeline. Drafting Caitlin Clark, the most famous, most scrutinized, most polarizing female athlete on the planet, rewrote Sides' job overnight. Her quiet rebuild turned into a daily survival mission, managing a global phenomenon. Every substitution is judged. Every timeout becomes a headline. Every late game decision gets ripped apart by millions. Losses don't feel like losses anymore, they feel like disasters. And every awkward on-court moment is immediately blamed on one thing: the coach supposedly failing to unlock a generational talent. The media isn't covering Indiana anymore. They're living inside it. This has become a 24/7 reality show, and Christy Sides has been cast as the overwhelmed, embattled director trapped in the middle of a storm she didn't create. She's forced to balance veteran egos, develop a rookie icon, and somehow keep the team together while fans, the league, corporate sponsors, and television networks all treat Caitlin Clark like the golden ticket that must be protected at all costs. But the Fever keep losing. The chemistry looks awkward, disjointed, almost painful to watch. The defense leaks points. The offense stalls. And suddenly the pressure isn't just heavy, it's suffocating. For Sides, there is no winning. If she benches Clark or pushes her too hard over defensive lapses, she's accused of sabotaging her own superstar. If she lets Clark run wild, she's accused of losing control and abandoning her other talented players. Every move she makes sparks outrage. Every decision creates a new enemy. The pressure is constant, relentless, and coming from every direction at once. And the whispers from behind those locker room doors suggest that this external chaos is starting to create internal damage, fractures that might soon become impossible to hide, let alone repair. Because beyond the heat of the coach's seat, there's another rumor spreading quietly, and it's even more dangerous. A locker room that feels tense. A locker room that feels divided. The Indiana Fever aren't just Caitlin Clark. They're full of established professionals, including former #1 overall pick Aaliyah Boston and veteran scorers like Kelsey Mitchell. And the narrative growing louder from insiders and analysts is that some of these players are struggling to adjust to their new reality. They went from being the focal point to being supporting characters in the Caitlin Clark show. The shift was instant, abrupt, and for some, probably humiliating. And on the court, it shows. The chemistry looks forced. Roles look unclear. Plays collapse mid-possession. The offense freezes, then defaults to Clark taking a contested, impossible shot while teammates stand watching. Not because they don't care, but because they don't know what the team is anymore. Is the real root of this crisis professional jealousy, the natural human reaction to watching a rookie soak up all the credit, all the cameras, all the praise? Or is it simply basketball reality, the brutal challenge of forcing a high-usage, ball-dominant star into a team that already had its own rhythm and identity? The truth is, it's almost certainly both, tangled together into something far more dangerous. Sources reportedly close to the Fever suggest there's no open mutiny, no obvious rebellion, but there's something you can feel in the air, an underlying tension that refuses to disappear. The veterans are said to be exhausted by the nonstop media obsession with one player and by the suffocating perception that the entire franchise rises or falls on Caitlin Clark's shoulders alone. These are proud, elite professionals who spent their whole lives clawing their way to the top of this sport. And yet now they're treated like background noise in their own locker room, erased by a global spotlight that only seems to shine in one direction. That kind of dynamic doesn't fade quietly. It sits there like a powder keg, waiting for one spark. Because if resentment is simmering beneath the surface, if the roster isn't fully bought in, then no coach on earth, not Christy Sides or anyone else, can magically fix it. And just when you think the situation can't get more volatile, the silence from the very top of the organization only makes it worse, pouring gasoline on a fire that's already burning out of control. Because now the story circles back to Fever President Allison Barber and that explosive rumor claiming she confirmed a resignation. The literal truth is simple. She hasn't confirmed anything publicly. Not once. Not in any press conference. Not in any official statement. But in professional sports, perception becomes reality, and her response, or more accurately her refusal to respond, is being viewed as dangerously weak. In the high-stakes world of franchise leadership, a swift denial isn't optional. And when it doesn't come, people don't assume calm, they assume chaos. As the Fever continue to struggle on the court, as rumors of locker room fractures grow louder, and as Christy Sides is publicly ripped apart after every loss, the front office has remained unnervingly quiet. There has been no forceful statement from Barber backing her head coach. No moment of leadership. No press conference where the organization stands shoulder to shoulder with Sides and the players, projecting strength and unity against the outside noise. Instead, there's been nothing. And that silence has become its own message. A massive, gaping void that's now fueling the resignation rumors more than any gossip blog ever could. Because when the president says nothing, fans interpret as hesitation. Analysts interpret as doubt. And the league interprets it as weakness. It creates the impression that the front office is waiting, watching, measuring how ugly things get before making their move, leaving their head coach to absorb every punch alone in the middle of a media hurricane. And in a strange, twisted way, the title of the video starts to feel accurate. Maybe Barber did confirm something. Not with words, but with silence. By refusing to shut the rumors down, she's confirmed that something is wrong. By failing to publicly defend her coach, she's confirmed that Christy Sides may not be safe. And by allowing the narrative of chaos to spiral without control, she's confirmed what everyone already fears, that this franchise is in crisis, and they don't know how to steer through the storm. They helped create the moment they drafted Caitlin Clark. That silence has opened a dangerous power vacuum, and now it's being filled with speculation, fear, and a growing sense that something is about to break. But what if this chaos in Indiana isn't just an Indiana problem? What if it's the symptom of something bigger, something league-wide, something that's been brewing ever since Caitlin Clark's name was called on draft night? Because the turmoil in Indiana might only be one piece of a much darker puzzle. And the question starting to spread through the basketball world is no longer about the Fever's chemistry. It's about the entire WNBA. Is there a powerful faction inside the league that resents Caitlin Clark's rise and is actively pushing back against it? The evidence is starting to feel impossible to ignore. From the moment she stepped onto a professional floor, Clark has faced a level of physical aggression and psychological warfare that looks less like rookie hazing and more like a message being sent. The infamous hip check from Kennedy Carter wasn't just a hard foul. It was a blatant non-basketball hit, the kind of move that doesn't feel competitive, it feels personal. And it didn't stop there. Night after night, Caitlin Clark has taken extra contact, cheap shots away from the play, and sharp verbal jabs the cameras don't always catch, the kind of quiet hostility that only the players on the floor truly understand. Even prominent commentators and legends like Diana Taurasi have openly said what everyone is starting to suspect: there's a target on her back. That a faction of veterans feels disrespected by the media obsession, the endorsement deals, and the storyline that Clark is somehow single-handedly saving the league. And that's what makes this feel different. This isn't normal rookie treatment. This isn't just welcome to the WNBA. To many observers, it looks like something darker, like the old guard is trying to send a message with elbows, bumps, and intimidation. Because they see the private jets. They see the sold-out arenas. They see the multi-million-dollar Nike contracts. And deep down, some of them feel like it's unearned, like the spotlight is being handed to her while they spent years fighting for recognition and never got anything close to this. To them, Clark isn't just a rookie. She's a symbol of everything they believe the league ignored about them, and the Indiana Fever are stuck in the middle of it all. Their internal struggles aren't isolated. They're a mirror of a much larger resentment brewing across the entire league. Every opponent plays Indiana with extra edge, extra aggression, extra emotion. Clark gets hit harder. The Fever fall apart under pressure. Losses pile up, and that only intensifies the scrutiny on Christy Sides, which only tightens the tension in the locker room. It becomes a vicious cycle, self-perpetuating, spiraling deeper every week. The Fever aren't just battling teams. They're battling a league-wide narrative that feels determined to humble Caitlin Clark at any cost. And that kind of collective pressure doesn't just wear you down, it breaks you. So suddenly, that viral rumor about Stephanie White resigning starts to look like what it always was: a ghost story. A distraction. A clever misdirection designed to pull eyes away from the terrifying reality happening right now. Because the truth is far more complex and far more dangerous. The Indiana Fever are sitting at the epicenter of a perfect storm no one could have predicted. They have a generational talent who is also a lightning rod for controversy, jealousy, and resentment. They have a coach trapped in a no-win situation. They have a locker room struggling to survive a massive power shift that happened overnight. They have a front office whose silence is breeding fear instead of stability. And they have a league that at times seems almost eager to watch them fail. The real drama isn't some fabricated resignation from the past. The real drama is the very real possibility of an implosion coming fast and coming violently. The pressure cooker is shaking. The lid is rattling. And now the question isn't if something major is going to happen, it's when, and how devastating it will be. Will Christy Sides be sacrificed as the scapegoat for a crisis that's far bigger than her? Can the locker room heal its fractures before they split the team for good? Or will the Caitlin Clark phenomenon, the force that was supposed to launch Indiana into a golden era, become the very thing that tears the franchise apart piece by painful piece, because the entire sports world is watching? And what happens in Indiana won't just shape the future of the Fever, it could define the direction of the entire WNBA for the next decade. The fuse has already been lit. And now the only question left is how massive the explosion will be.